I let her talk for another 30 minutes before I held up my hand and rose from my seat. It's over, Beck. Accept it and move on. Understand that I still love you, but it isn't enough anymore. The divorce will be final in 4 weeks. It's best for both of us. You're still a young, beautiful woman, and you'll find someone else. When you do, if you ever get tempted, think of us. You will deserve your best. I walked out, my heart breaking all over again as I heard her wail. Kathy called me 2 days later. I just finished a session with Becky. You know I can't tell you what we talked about, but she still thinks she can win you back. Watch for her. I know she'll be around, and I'm worried. I'm really sorry it ended this way. I think you should continue seeing me for a while. Shall we make an appointment? I thought about it. Not right now. I'll call you in a month or so. Thanks for everything, Kathy. Kathy was right. Becky had one last attempt before she gave up. I loved all of her family except her oldest brother. He was a cop, a shift commander. He was also arrogant and a bully. We tolerated each other. He had taken to pulling me over regularly, just to mess with me, and demand that I forgive his sister. I talked to Paul, who had me logged the next 4 stops. The good commander found himself explaining his interest to the assistant chief. The stops halted, and it didn't make him like me more. It was 2 weeks before the final hearing. The sun was shining, spring was in the air, and I was feeling happy for the first time in a long while. The Yamaha was humming right along that Saturday morning when the lights came on behind me. I pulled over. I was getting my license out, not looking at him, when he tasered me, put me in cuffs, and threw me in the back of his car. I had just come around when he stopped at a nearby park, hauled me out while I ranted, and handcuffed me to a bench. Then he took the original cuffs off and used them to hook Becky to me. You'll listen now. I'll be back in 45 minutes, and I better see smiling faces. Becky babbled while I tried to clear my head, apologizing for what was happening. Can we talk now, baby? I looked at her, trying to find the woman I'd married in her eyes. She wasn't there. Like I have a choice, I said, smiling. Just hand me my phone. I had someone waiting on me. Then I'll be all ears. She got my phone out and handed it to me. I dialed 911. 911, state your emergency. This is Chase Gooding. I'm in Armstrong Park, the bench on the south side near the gazebo. I've been kidnapped and handcuffed to a bench with another person. I repeat, I've been kidnapped. Becky was looking horrified, trying to wrestle the phone out of my hand. She was screaming. There were a lot of people in the park, and some were coming over. Sir, a car has been dispatched. Do you know your abductor? Shift Commander Jeff Sterling. I'm handcuffed to his sister. Help. The car must have been in the neighborhood. It was there in less than 2 minutes. Becky was still screaming while the patrolman tried to remove the cuffs. Her brother came roaring up, sliding across the grass and scattering onlookers. I've got this, he said. The patrolman wavered, looking at me. If you leave me in his custody, it makes you an accomplice. Jail time, maybe. Loss of career, definitely. Call someone higher up the food chain. He made the call, and soon 6 cop cars surrounded us. Nobody was arrested. The investigation was pinned, and I was taken back to my bike. Everything hit the fan the next day. The officer had recorded everything on his dash cam. Me stopping, the taser, the cuffs, the whole thing until he stuffed me into the car. I could have pressed charges. Assault, kidnapping, unlawful use of a police vehicle. The list went on. Becky would have been charged as an accomplice. I had Paul with me when we met the DA to discuss the incident. My client will make this easy for everyone. He won't press charges if the officer is disciplined in-house and his wife agrees not to appear at their final divorce hearing and ceases all contact with him. Your choice and theirs. But if they decide not to take the deal, I'll go after them hard. Understand? They had no choice. Their parents didn't want to see 2 of their 3 children behind bars, so the deal was accepted. Her brother didn't get off without punishment. He was demoted, assigned the graveyard shift, reprimanded, and his chances of promotion were minuscule. He couldn't quit because no other agency would touch him. So it was finally over. I went back to my successful business and found a charming, younger woman who loved me for my kind heart and convinced me there was still sweetness and light in the world. Actually, I lost my friends, my business, and my wife. It was a while before I even looked at another woman. My business tanked because everyone knew the situation we were in and didn't give us any more contracts. Luckily, Edith got the offer she deserved and took her trainee with her, then quit soon after. The next month, I walked into the office. There was a note on the door. "You win, you scum sucker. Ellen found another job. The paperwork is on your desk. Sign it, and the company is officially dissolved." She didn't sign it, but I recognized Cindy's writing. There was actually a little money left, and after I got my half of the house sale, I was in pretty good shape. I could even take the next year off if I wanted. I took 2 months, got on the ROADSTAR, and went rambling. I ended up 3 states down, well below the Mason-Dixon line. It was one of the prettiest cities I'd ever seen, surrounded by mountains with friendly people and a relaxed atmosphere. It kind of felt like I'd landed in the 60s because the people all seemed so laid back. I stayed 3 days, hitting tourist traps and doing research. I checked out a few more towns, but none had the same vibe. So I came back, got a room for a week, and went house hunting. I looked at some condos and apartments, but I became partial to houses with decent yards. I found what I wanted on the third one I looked at, a small cottage, 1,200 square feet, 2-bedroom, with a huge yard, and a stream running across the back. It was set apart a good distance from the nearest neighbor, at least for a year, with an option to buy. Next, I went job hunting, finding one at a small firm that catered to up-and-coming and mid-sized companies. They gave me a few small accounts to see how good I was. In 6 months, the boss wanted to talk. I had to tell him that she was not short for Jason. My name was actually John Charles. I had been called JC up until my sister was about 4. She pronounced it JC and then shortened it to Jace. It stuck, and I quit fighting it years ago. In that peculiar Southern way, when the conversation was important, he used both my given names. "John Charles, you've been doing very good work, so good that I wondered why you were here. I checked up on what you put on your resume, and it was all true. I have a feeling you won't stay with us long, so I'm going to use you hard. I'm giving you a new account." He's a friend of mine who owns a very successful regional winery and wants to take his product national. Go talk to him, set up some meetings, and start thinking. This could be very good for all of us. And if I grow, I want you along. I was flattered that he thought so highly of me. The vintner was a local who had trained and studied in Italy for 6 years before coming home to take care of his aging parents. He took over their farm and used the north-facing slopes to grow vines he had imported from the region where he trained. He started out small, adding acreage and expanding the winery as he could. Now he owned 3 more farms and had doubled his own acreage. He had won several local and regional medals for his sweet wines and wanted to crack the national market. He had already secured a distributor. Now he needed an ad campaign to bring his product into the limelight. I stopped by and did an anonymous wine tasting. Most were quite good, some I didn't care for. I finally introduced myself and asked for Mr. Edwards. He came hustling in farm clothes. We shook hands, and he asked me why I hadn't made an appointment. "I wanted to taste your product, observe your operation, and maybe work on some ideas. I don't expect you to drop everything to talk to me. I just wanted you to know I stopped by, and to make that appointment in person." "What do you think of my wines?" he asked, seeming anxious. "I like most of them. I'm no expert, but I like them so much I bought a mixed case to take home." While I was talking, an idea was germinating. I couldn't wait to get back and start developing it. It was not to be. Jack insisted on using first names and had me follow him around for a while, explaining the winery, the origin of the vines, and everything he could think to tell me. I ended up spending 3 hours with him personally. I spent my off time exploring the area, turning the row at Starloose on those winding mountain roads. I'd had a little work done that boosted power, and she could scoot if I opened her up. I took some money and bought a well-used but reliable 4-wheel drive truck. The winters could be quite snowy here. I kept my car, a little Dodge Dart. It was more than enough for a single person, and I'd bought the top-of-the-line turbo package. It was supposed to do over 180, but I never got it over 110. And that was just twice. The car and the bike were garaged, and the truck stayed outside. I was wandering around one Saturday afternoon when I ran across a little bar in the middle of nowhere. There were a few bikes out front, mostly Harleys, but there was a Gold Wing and a few sport bikes, so I decided to stop for a beer. The place kind of went quiet for a minute. They could tell I wasn't a local. I ordered my beer and looked the place over. It was old but clean and neat. The patrons seemed to all know each other, and the insults and banter flowed easily. The bartender talked a little after he served the second round. "It's been in my family for 70 years, he said, talking about the place. "We've got a good reputation. No fights. Nobody bothers anybody, especially a woman. That'll get you booted fast, faster than anything." I complimented him, knowing the value of a place where you could relax, whether it was with a crowd of suits and dresses or jeans and short skirts. People were people, basically the same despite income levels. He liked the praise, said the next round was on him, and left me. A huge bearded guy took the stool next to me. "Yours?" he asked, looking through the window at my bike. "Yeah," I said. He snorted. "Another rice grinder. What happened? They don't sell real bikes made in America where you come from." He said it with a tone to take the sting out. "Which one is yours?" I asked. He pointed at an older, chopped-out Harley. "Nice ride," he said. I grinned. "The forks are from Italy. The carbs, if they're stock, came from Japan. The tires, again if they're stock, were made by a British firm and manufactured in France. Still think it's all American." He stared at me. "No," he admitted, "but still, nice bike." After that, half the bar was in on the discussion. One guy said his Vulcan was made right here in the U.S. We ended up going out to look at all of them. By the time we came back, I had a new set of friends. I ended up hanging at the bar most weekends, going on poker runs, and just riding in a group when the urge took us. They showed me a lot of places I would never have known existed. I got my nickname 3 months later. I had been to see Jack Edwards about the campaign we were planning. I was hoping to get him to let me shoot a commercial in his tasting room. It was wood, stone, and glass, with a high ceiling and lots of natural light. After I explained, he was all for it, provided we could do it on a Monday, his slowest sales day. He gave me a case of wines I hadn't tasted yet, just for my opinion. Many of his wines had names linked to the area. Amore Red was named for the old grist mill on the edge of his property, and Yankee Orchard White was named for a friend's apple orchard, a transplanted New Yorker. He specialized in rare and new varieties. Juice from his Pink Lady apples was mixed with a medium white, and it was really smooth, tasting like fresh apples with just a hint of grape. It had been a long day, and I needed to unwind. As it happened, I had to go right by the bar on the way home. Forgetting how I was dressed, I walked in. There was silence for a minute. Then the laughter and rooting started. "Where you been?" laughed Fat Bob, the first guy I talked to when I found the place. We had become pretty good friends, to the point that I sometimes loaned him my truck if his bike was down, and he needed to haul it to the shop. I was about to explain when another voice rang out. "Who's the 3 of 4? I didn't even need to turn around. Amanda Patterson, known in the bar as Baby Doll, because she had just turned 20 and was barely 5 foot tall, was cute, a redhead with a hair-trigger temper, and a mouth that would make drill instructors blush. She was sort of a mascot, and nobody hit on her unless she wanted them to. I never saw her want it. "Hi, Amanda. I got all dressed up to ask for your hand in marriage," I said, getting down on one knee while the bar roared. She turned crimson, and the temper came out. Her opinion of love and marriage was clear, and I was sure there was history there somewhere. Plus, she hated being called Amanda. "That ain't funny, jerk. And what the heck are you laughing at? Don't make me go to your buddies." That made them laugh harder. I refused to take that as a no. More of it, "I'll think about it. Do I need to wear the suit until you decide to make an honest man out of me?" She pushed me backward and stomped off to the kitchen. Fat Bob helped me up. "I wouldn't order anything tonight. She'll probably spit on it or worse." Amanda helped out in the kitchen on weekends for tips and meals. I found out from Ellen, one of the bartenders, that she'd had a rough life, was broke, and living in a women's shelter during the week, sleeping at the bar on a cot in the back room on the weekends. It wasn't exactly legal, but who was going to tell? She was a good kid down on her luck. We'd hire her full-time if we could afford it. I asked Ellen how Amanda ate during the week and why she didn't have a job. Soup kitchens, I suppose. I never really asked. I think she has a juvie record, hasn't finished high school, has no transportation, and that makes her job prospects pretty slim. Amanda was there almost every night, not leaving until she had to go back to make sure she had a bed for the night. I don't know why I did it. Maybe I wanted to feel connected to another human being, or maybe I wanted to give her hope. I struck a deal with Ellen and Sam, the owner. I'd pay for her meals during the week. Sam agreed to let her wait tables and clean up for hours a night for $100 a week in cash, which I paid half of. I supplied the cash on the condition that she absolutely could not know I had anything to do with it. "Here," I said, giving Ellen $200. "Take her shopping. She needs new clothes. Tell her she can pay you back out of her wages, $20 a week." Ellen said it was the first time she'd ever seen Amanda cry. Not extravagant, but she bought new underwear, 3 pairs of the cheapest jeans she could find, and 4 plain t-shirts, plus 2 pairs of markdown sneakers. She was done. I thought about it as Ellen told me Becky would pay more for a pair of shoes she didn't really like that much, wear them 3 or 4 times, and get rid of them. She probably spent more than Amanda made in a month on makeup and accessories alone. Amanda didn't come out of the kitchen the rest of the night. Ellen said later she thought Amanda might have cried a little, blaming it on chopping onions. I felt bad, hoping I hadn't hurt her feelings too much, so I got the nickname Suit, which everybody thought was pretty funny. I actually made it a point, if I was near, to stop in with my work clothes on from time to time. Every time I'd wear one, I'd ask her if she'd changed her mind. She still cussed me every time, but now she smiled. The whole bar petted her. I never really thought about how she felt about anything until one night when a new guy was hitting on her. She fought him off with a smile, but he was getting worse. When she bent over at the next table to pick up the empties, he pinched her on her backside. I sighed and was almost there without even thinking. She screamed, turned, and dumped a half-full draft in his face. "What?" he said, pulling back to slap her. I grabbed his arm and yanked him off the chair. Sam and Fat Bob got there in time to keep me from hitting him. Amanda slapped the heck out of him as we got him up. "Don't ever touch me again, jerk. Next time my fiancé won't be held off." She blushed when she realized what she'd said and ran into the kitchen. She came out later, thanking me for my help. I grinned. I couldn't have my future brightened by hurting her feelings now, could I? I know you didn't mean it, but it might be wise to let the jerks who hit on you know you're claimed. Think about it. She surprised the whole bar by kissing my cheek. After the whistles and yells died down, she told them she'd kick their rears if they laughed at her and her boyfriend again. This really set them off, and she fled back into the kitchen. 3 weeks later, there was a poker run that I signed up for. We met at the bar, and they opened up the kitchen for breakfast. After we'd eaten and were lining up, I felt a tug on my sleeve. "Can I ride with you?" "Why not? Sure, if you have a helmet. She held up one. Fat Boy loaned it to me. She was in jeans and a tee. It's going to be cool this time of morning. Go get your jacket. It'll be awful cold if you don't. She hung her head. I don't have one. Haven't needed it yet. I sighed. Come on, I won't hurt you. It won't be safe unless you do. Everybody knows you hate being touched. She reluctantly put her hands around my waist. I started out slow until she relaxed. I dropped out after a mile, swinging into a Walmart. Why are we here? To get you a jacket. I can feel your shivers through my coat. If you want, you can pay me back, or you can accept it as a gift for riding with me. Either way, we're not leaving until you have one. She pouted, but I dragged her in and got her a nice little jacket, a scarf, and even gloves, which made her whine even more. If you don't stop, I'm leaving you here. You need these. I don't want you sick because of your stubbornness. Now smile and thank me for being a nice guy. She smirked. Thanks, jerk. If you want to throw your money away, I'll let you. Can we catch up with the guys now? We caught up to them at the second checkpoint. By then, she had snuggled in behind me with a firm grip. The halfway point was lunch at a nice buffet-style restaurant. She acted like she'd wait by the bike. I leaned in. Get your tiny little butt into the restaurant right now. If you don't, I'll throw you over my shoulder and carry you in. We clear? She nodded, looking upset, but it didn't stop her from stuffing herself. At the end of the day, she was more relaxed. We won a prize, a gift certificate for $100 at a Harley dealership. I gave it to her, putting my hand firmly over her mouth when she started to protest. I left it there for a few seconds. When I removed it, she didn't say anything, but her eyes were blazing. If looks could kill, I'd have been done for. Things went downhill on the way back. It started raining, a cold drizzle that got harder. We were less than a mile from my house and 10 from the bar, so I turned off. When we pulled into my garage, she got off the bike, took off her new coat, gloves, and scarf, and threw them onto the floor along with the gift certificate. Her face was a mask of rage and pain. She had misunderstood the situation completely. You think because you bought me a few things you're automatically getting me into bed. Shove these things up your nose, she spat. She turned around, stalking out. It took me a minute or two to recover and calm down. Then I got into my Dart and went looking. She had set a fast pace and had gone almost a quarter of a mile. It was raining hard by then. I pulled over just past her. Get in the car, Amanda. Go to heck, she said, trying to walk past. I grabbed her arm. You have a choice here. You can get in the car, and I'll drive you back to the bar, or you can refuse, and I'll throw you in the car after I paddle that stubborn butt until you see reason. Your choice. She tried to push past me. You wouldn't dare. Suits don't do things like this. I was twice her size and pretty upset. I had her slammed face down on the hood in 3 seconds, my first smack landing right between her cheeks. She screamed more from surprise than pain. I landed 2 more before she started begging me to stop. I'll get in the car. I'll be good, I promise. Please, no more. By now, I had calmed down and was a little ashamed. I let go of her and opened the passenger door. She slid in without hesitation. We had gone a mile when she started to talk. I held up my hand. Not a word, or I'll pull over and finish what I started. Then I'll leave you where you are. Understand? She nodded wide-eyed. I pulled into the parking lot, reached over, and threw her door open. Out. Now. She got out. I slammed the door, pulled onto the highway, and turned the turbo loose, shredding tires. I didn't go back for 3 weeks, waiting until after she had left before I walked in, giving Ellen the coat, scarf, and gloves. Here. They're for Amanda. She can wear them, burn them, or stick them up her butt. I don't really care. Ellen and Sam looked at me in shock. Then Ellen grinned and slapped me. What the heck was that for? I asked, rubbing my cheek. That's for making us put up with a screaming witch for 3 weeks. We wondered what happened when you dropped out. Then baby doll came in, went straight into the back, and started crying. She cried for 3 days before I got it out of her. She's had a miserable life so far. Abused and abandoned at 15, foster homes until she was 18, and then she was out on the streets. Apparently, she hooked up with a flaming jerk who tried to take advantage of her. Take it easy on her. Suit. She doesn't know how to handle someone kind and decent. It's a foreign concept to her. She thinks if someone is nice to her, they want something, usually something she doesn't want to give. She stopped grinning. She runs to the door every time she hears a bike, hoping it's you. She'd fry in heck before she'd admit it, but she has a huge crush on you. It's gone from witching to whimpering. Give the girl a break. Show up while she's here. Give her a kind word before she tears every head in the bar off. I went to the bar the next night, driving the Dart and wearing a suit. Amanda, get your skinny butt out here. She peeked out of the kitchen, fear on her face. I gentled my tone. Come on, baby doll, I just want to talk. She eased out into the bar, looking like she was ready to run at any second. I had already talked to Sam and Ellen, so they knew what I was going to do. Sam, tell her she's fired. Her face went pale, and Ellen laughed. Just for tonight, honorable, you still have your job. She brightened a little. That's right, you're still employed. Just not tonight. Tonight, we're going out. First, I'll take you to a place that serves real food. Hey, said Sam and Ellen together, but they were smiling. Let me rephrase that. Somewhere where burgers and fries aren't considered a full meal. Then I thought we'd see a movie, one of those tear-jerkers little girls like you love. Get cleaned up while I drink a beer. People were laughing, and she was red. She unconsciously rubbed her jeans. I'm not really dressed though. 10 minutes, Amanda, or we repeat what happened the night it rained. Clear. She squealed and shot into the back room. I looked at Ellen. Go back there. Use some of your makeup to help her feel pretty. Calm her down. It's just dinner and a movie. She surprised everybody by giving me a huge kiss. Maybe to you, that's odd. When she came out, her cheeks were glowing. Ellen had helped her with her hair, put a little lipstick on her, and she looked great. I put her hand under my arm, opened the door for her while the gang washed from the door. I opened the door to the car and buckled her in. I could hear faint cheers as I drove away. Anywhere special you'd like to eat? I asked as we sped along. I couldn't help driving fast. She had hardly spoken. Anywhere is fine, she said, looking out the window. I pulled over in a parking lot. Look at me, Amanda. She turned her head. When I ask you a question, I expect a straight answer. Now again, where would you like to eat? Would you like to try something new? Italian, Thai, anything at all. She looked down, and in a voice so small I almost didn't hear her, said, I've always wanted to try lobster, but you don't have to spend that much money. I took her to Red Lobster and got her a plate with lobster in 3 different styles. She was tentative at first, but gained confidence as she ate. She even tried to get me to take a bite once. Sorry, Amanda. I don't like lobster. Then why did we come here? She asked in confusion. Because you wanted to try lobster. Besides, I've enjoyed the shrimp, I said. That made her happy, and she had no trouble sampling my shrimp when I offered. After dinner, we went to the movies. There were 8 choices, and I let her pick. I didn't think she was a horror fan, but apparently, the gorier, the better for her. After the movie, we went to an ice cream parlor, and she got a large banana split with 2 spoons. For a tiny thing, she sure ate a lot. Everything was perfect until we passed a bank with the time and temperature flashing. Oh no. What? I asked. I stayed out too late to sleep in the homeless shelter. I guess you'll have to take me back to the bar. All right, I said, driving her straight to my house. She sat frozen while I turned off the car and the garage door closed. Amanda, listen to me very carefully. I have 2 bedrooms. One of them will be yours for the night, and it has a lock. You can sleep in a comfortable bed, take a nice shower, I'll even throw in breakfast. No strings attached, nothing owed, nothing expected. It's up to you. I'm going inside now. If you don't trust me, lock the doors and recline the seat, and I'll wake you in the morning." It was 30 minutes before she came in. "Where's the bedroom?" I showed it to her, showed her where the towels were, gave her a shirt to sleep in, and went to bed, laughing quietly as I locked my own door. She must sleep like a rock, because I had showered, dressed, and had breakfast done before I knocked on her door. Time to get up, sleepyhead. Breakfast is ready. I poured coffee, plated the ham and cheese omelet, and placed the toast on the table, and waited. I had just about given up when she stumbled into the kitchen, still in my t-shirt. It hung to her knees. She looked 11. Being slow to wake didn't hurt her appetite any, and she cleaned her plate. We stacked the dishes into the sink, and I picked up my travel mug. "Where do you want me to drop you?" She looked surprised. "I don't know. I usually hang out at the library until it's time to go to work, but it'll be 2 hours before it opens. I guess you can drop me by the park." I didn't like that idea. Bums sleep in the park. No way I wanted her there, especially that early. "I tell you what, hang out here. I'll take the truck to work and meet you after I get off. You can take the dart to the bar. Scratch it, and you better run for your life. Understand?" Her eyes were huge. "You trust me that much?" I grinned. "You going to steal from me?" She went bright red. I cut her off before she could talk. "I didn't think so. In fact, I need the oil changed. Think you could drive it to the Dodge dealership for me? It's already paid for, so you don't have to worry about that. I'll call when they open. Will you do it if they can work me in?" She was just nodding her head. I surprised her by kissing her cheek, backing up before she could react. "Thanks, honey. I'll call as soon as I find out. Watch television, eat anything you like. I'll see you later." She was rubbing the cheek I kissed as I walked out. Everyone at work remarked on my good mood. A secretary asked me if I'd gotten lucky. She said it kind of snippy. She'd made a run at me right after I'd started working there, and I'd turned her down. She was in her mid-30s, a little older than me. I finished pouring my coffee before I turned to her. "As a matter of fact, Gail, I spent the night with a hot little redhead almost 10 years younger than me. Remember the energy you had at that age? I'm lucky I can walk." I left her open-mouthed to the laughter of everyone else. She did get the oil change for me. I stopped by home to change, and was amazed at how clean it was. It literally sparkled from top to bottom. She must have been at it all day. I had called Fat Boy, and he came by to pick me up so I could retrieve my car. He was grinning ear to ear. "What, you and baby doll? Is she as hot in bed as she looks?" I looked at him and grinned. "You're a dirty old man, you know that. All she got last night was a bed alone." "If you say so," he said, still grinning. I wasn't prepared for what happened when we got there. She ran to me, jumping up so I had to catch her, and gave me a big kiss. Electricity shot through me so hard I fought the urge to look at my shoes to see if they were blown out. The bar held its breath. "Shut up," she yelled. This is how a woman is supposed to greet her man. I was surprised at the display of emotion. She spent every minute she could close to me, to the point Sam told her if she didn't get to work, he was going to fire her scrawny butt. When I got ready to leave, she asked if I'd stay a bit longer and drive her back to the shelter. How could I refuse? I warned the car and waited. She came out with a big backpack that I had to put in the trunk. "What's in here?" "Everything I own," she said, sliding into the passenger seat. "There's no place safe for me to store it at the shelter. Somebody would steal it in a blink." I thought about what a sad way that was to live as I drove. When I missed the turn to the shelter, she questioned it. "If I don't get there soon, I won't have anywhere to sleep." "You're not sleeping there tonight. You've got a room at my house. You've earned it, cleaning the house and running errands for me today. Consider it a thank you." She started to protest, but thought better of it, and turned the radio to a station I hated and cranked the volume. "Tonight, Instead of going straight to bed, she took a shower, put on one of my teas, and flopped on the couch. She grabbed the remote and started channel surfing. Hey, I was watching that. It's boring as heck, Suit. Besides, I'm your guest here. She settled on some show about 4 girls and a secret they shared. I lasted 5 minutes. If you're going to watch stuff that turns your brain to mush, I'm going to bed before I get infected. Good night, Amanda. I could still hear the TV blaring when I drifted off to sleep. The next morning, she woke me up, banging on my door. Breakfast, sleepyhead, she said, pulling me from the day before. Eat it while it's hot. Sausage, home fries, and grits. I was still getting used to them not being from the South. I will admit they were growing on me. You don't keep much food around, do you? She asked as I ate. Single guy, not home much. No reason to. I said around a bite of sausage. She stacked the dishes when I was done. Do you need a ride tonight? I asked as I walked out the door. I'm off tonight, she said, but don't worry about me. I have things to do. Will I see you tonight? She grinned. Maybe. You have a good day now. I thought about her often all day. She was getting under my skin. I had dated some since Becky. Nothing serious, not on a regular basis, but enough to keep the edge off. In a moment of reflection, I had to wonder how much my feelings for her were pity and how much was attraction. I ran through the reasons for and against trying to start a relationship with her. She was way too young. I felt like a cradle robber. She was wounded, loud, profane, and irritating beyond words sometimes. We had nothing in common. Her temper had a hair trigger, and many times she acted before she thought. But in the rare times she let her guard down, she was sweet and loving. She was smart and strong, dealing with a miserable fate with all the dignity she could. It occurred to me she'd be a great mother, fierce and protective. The thought of that tiny body 9 months pregnant made me smile. And though she didn't know it, she was beautiful, or would be if she dressed better and learned to use makeup. But her beauty went much deeper than her skin. I wondered where she had gone as I drove home. The thought of her in the shelter depressed me no end. She deserved better. The smell hit me when I walked in the door. I don't know what it was, but it made my mouth water. She must have heard the door because she came out of the kitchen, hair in a ponytail and wearing an apron. I stood amazed when she went up on her toes to kiss my cheek. Hi, honey. How was work? That was all she got out before she almost collapsed, laughing at the expression on my face. Then she got serious. I made you dinner. Nothing fancy. I'm a good cook, but I haven't had much opportunity to practice lately. It'll be ready in 30 minutes. Sit down. I'll get you a beer. Or would you rather have tea? After we eat, I need to talk to you. There it was, that determined look she had. I knew it had to be serious. Tea would be fine. Anything I can do to help. She seemed to let out a sigh of relief. Got it. Dinner was great. Roast pork, basil, and rosemary roasted potatoes, asparagus, and homemade bread. It was probably the best meal I'd ever eaten. I stuffed myself, then got a little embarrassed. She smiled. I'll take the mass consumption as a compliment. Ready for dessert. She had made banana pudding, one of the things I'd learned to love about the South. I was almost comatose when I pushed back from the table. She sent me into the living room while she cleaned up. When she was done, she pulled a chair directly in front of the couch. Did you like supper? Is the house clean enough for you? Maybe. I've never seen the house cleaner, and dinner was excellent. Where did you learn to cook like that? She looked sad for a minute. Mama wasn't much, but she was a heck of a cook. She taught me a lot before the alcohol got her. I wanted to hug her badly right then. She shook off her memories and looked me in the eye. I want to make a deal with you, John Charles. I'd like to rent a room from you. I can give you $50 a week, plus I'll cook and clean the house, do the laundry. I'll even mow the yard. I won't get in your way. Please, these last couple of nights have made me happier than I've been in a long time. I just can't face going back to the shelter. Please, She looked at me full of hope. No. Her face collapsed like a balloon losing air, and tears started. I'll get my things. Will you drive me to the shelter? No, you're not going anywhere until I talk. So sit, listen, and don't interrupt. Promise me. Her face was a mixture of fear and hope. She nodded. I'm happy to let you live with me under these conditions. 1. You will not pay me anything. Your rent will be keeping the house clean, doing the food shopping, and making the meals. 2. I enjoy yard work, so I'll do that. 3. You keep your job at the bar. You can drive the Dart for work and household needs. 4. And this is the big one. You have to go back to school, get your adult high school diploma, or at the very least a GED. She sat with her mouth open. I knew she was ashamed over her lack of education. Maybe this would force her to do something about it. She finally nodded her head. I'll do it, but on the school thing, will you help me? I'll need it. I relaxed, smiling. I'll do everything short of actually doing it for you. Do we have a deal? She jumped into my lap, kissing me until she realized what she was doing and jumped back off, flaming red. Sorry, she said. I grinned. I've got one more condition. You have to give me a goodnight kiss every night, and one before I go to work every morning. No deal otherwise. She blushed again, then grinned, holding out her hand. Deal. We shook hands and began a wonderful and curious stage of our lives. The next morning, I asked her where the food had come from. She gave me the receipts, and I paid her back. I gave her my debit card, telling her to shop for food and anything else she thought we might need. I grinned all the way to work, my cheek tingling from the goodbye kiss. You couldn't have blown the smile off my face that day with a stick of dynamite. Gail got catty again. Apparently, happiness offended her. See you, little girl. Honey, last night. Yes, and this morning. She moved in last night. You should find someone, Gail. It'll make you a much nicer person. Her look as I left would have soured milk. The guys at the bar gave me the thumbs up but smiled when they did it. Sam shook my hand, and Ellen kissed my cheek. You're a good man, Suit. I knew she'd get you sooner or later. We're just roommates, Ellen. Nothing going on. She just grinned wider. If you say so. Amanda smiled so hard I thought her cheeks would get a cramp when she saw me. I was about to order a burger when she stopped me. Your supper is in the fridge. Microwave it for 3 minutes. I hope you like it. I had 1 beer, shot a game of pool with Fat Boy, and went home to a nice dinner. She got off work at 9:30 when the kitchen closed and was home by 10 o'clock. She went straight to the shower. I smelled like old fries, she said when she came out in a robe with a towel wrapped around her head. What's on television? So we settled into a domestic routine. I did the yard work and washed the vehicles while she took care of the house. She cooked most of the meals, but I insisted on taking her out to eat or grilling for her once a week. On Sundays, if the weather was nice, we'd ride either alone or with our group. She got a new nickname, Mrs. Suit, which she grumbled about but did so with a grin. Her 21st birthday came, and I surprised her with a party at the bar. She even received presents, and soon she was crying. A rare display of emotion for her. She shocked everyone by hugging them in thanks. I gave her a day at a spa, complete with hair and makeup, and a gift certificate to an upscale department store. I'd like a day at a spa, complete with hair and makeup, and a gift certificate to an upscale department store. I'd like to see you out of those jeans. I grinned as she blushed. Helen got on to me, telling me it was time to step up and make an honest woman out of her. I don't know how she feels about me, I confessed. That you're the biggest dummy in the state. She loves you, but she doesn't know how to love. You need to teach her. It'll be worth it. How do you know so much? She hugged Sam when he walked up. Because 15 years ago, I was her. Then I met Sam, and though it took a while, he opened me up and made me understand there were good men in the world. I just hadn't found one until I met him. I'd been with a bike gang for 3 years. They did terrible things to me, and I let them because I thought that was what I deserved. They messed me up so bad I couldn't have kids. He loved me anyway. How could I fight that? The age difference is bigger than you and Amanda, and we made it. Take it to the next level. Suit. You'll never regret it. From what you said, she's nothing like your ex. I had told them a little about Becky and me about 6 months ago, when we'd had them over for dinner and Amanda had run to the store. She was doing really well in school. With my urging, she had opted for a full high school diploma instead of the GED. We estimated it would take another 2 months, and she could graduate. They held full graduation ceremonies twice a year as recognition of their accomplishments. Some of the graduates would be in their 60s, but most were like Amanda, kids that got lost in the system. I promised her a party when it happened. I almost had a heart attack when she used my birthday present. She had on a very nice sundress, blindingly white, with earrings and a necklace I had never seen her wear before. Her hair was teased into a wildly flowing style, her thick locks drifting down her back. She was so beautiful it made me ache. "What do you think?" she said, twirling around. "Did you get your money's worth?" I said the first thing that came to mind. All they did was polish a diamond. "Baby, you've always been this beautiful. The man who gets you will be the luckiest on the planet." She stopped in mid-twirl, her eyes filled with tears, and she bolted to her room. What had I done now? She came home from school the next week, giggling. "What's up?" I said, glad she was in a good mood. "I got asked out by this really cute guy. We've been talking off and on for a month." I felt like someone had driven a stake through my heart. "Oh," was all I said, turning away. She was on me in a flash. "That's all you've got to say?" "Oh." I was defensive. "What would you like me to say?" "You're obviously interested. You've been flirting for a month. Why should I stop you?" She went into her room, slamming the door. I sighed. That had been happening a lot lately. I was going to have it rehung if she kept this up. I knocked, but she refused to answer. Giving up, I got a beer and wallowed in misery. By my third, I was pondering the mysteries of women before dozing off. I woke when she shook my shoulder gently. "What?" I said, trying to focus. The big four came out of her mouth. "We need to talk." I was instantly alert. Nothing good ever came after those words, in my experience. "Do you like me?" I couldn't read her eyes. "Yes, I do," I answered honestly. "How much?" "I don't know what you want here, Amanda. Clue a guy in." She slapped the heck out of me. As I rubbed my jaw, she went into a rant. "I guess what I'm asking here is, do you love me? Not a friend love, but a full-grown man-woman type of love. Because I've loved you for a long time, and you've never noticed. I know I'm a lot younger than you. I'm uneducated. I have no social graces. I'm loud, jealous, scared. And that's just the start. I can't take it anymore. It hurts. So if you don't love me, I'm moving out." I stopped her rant with a kiss. "Hush now," I said sternly. "Are you trying to talk me out of having feelings for you? Because if you are, you're too late. And all the things you say you don't have are no matter. You have something much more important. You have my heart." I think she actually fainted when she heard what I said. When she recovered, she was in my lap, kissing and crying until she fell asleep. Did we jump into her bed and make passionate love? No, she was still damaged and fragile, so I held her until she cried herself out, took her to my bed, and tucked her in. Then I went out on the back deck, looking at the stars and wondering what would happen next. I was out there for over an hour. When I came back in, she had gotten her shirt out, put it on, and crawled back into bed. When I lay down, she snuggled into my arms, mumbled something that sounded like "I love you," and drifted off again. I held her for a long time, reveling in her presence, before I finally dozed off. I woke up alone to the smell of breakfast. She was flitting around the kitchen, getting everything perfect. I startled her when I swept her off her feet, kissing the back of her slender neck. She stiffened at first, then relaxed and giggled. Let me go, honey, or all you'll have for breakfast is burnt waffles. After breakfast, before she cleared the table, we talked. It was Saturday and we had nowhere to be. She snuggled into my lap. Honey, you know I love you. Please go slow with me. I'm carrying around a lot of baggage. She told me the story of her life, in between tears and hugs. She'd been happy until she was 10 when her dad died. Her mom was never a strong person and slid down a slope of depression and bad choices into a sea of alcohol. She had a stepfather and several boyfriends living with her when she was 15. One of them tried to assault her, but she fought him off and told the school. They took her away from her mother, and she spent the next 3 years in foster care. In juvenile hall, she had stolen a car in a desperate attempt to see her little sister, who was 9 years younger. It was the first time I knew she had a sister. When she turned 18, the system released her, and she ended up with a guy. Out of desperation, she gave him her virginity. Apparently, it was borderline abuse every time they were together. Then he tried to get her to prostitute herself for money. She ran away and ended up here. My heart ached for her. I want you so badly. I ache, Jace, but I freeze up. Help me. So I did. I even got her a therapist. Months later, it happened. We'd been getting closer, touching, talking. She got comfortable enough to walk around in tiny panties and a tank top, and to wear slinky little gowns to bed, which she hadn't been out of since the first time I put her there. Amanda didn't like alcohol, but she had developed a fondness for wine from her client. After a half bottle one night, the floodgates opened. I still took it slow. The first time we made love was slow and tender. The next morning, she woke me up and picked out an engagement ring. Really? I asked, standing in front of her. Really, she said, tears already flowing. Really, I said, dropping to one knee. Now you know why I wore the suit. Marry me. After she sobbed out a yes and calmed down, she tried on every ring in the store in the price range I could afford. She finally settled on a simple stone and band. Not the most expensive, but the one she wanted. When we walked into the bar, an instant party erupted. The women immediately huddled, leaving the men standing. What are they doing? I asked. The men are planning a wedding, you idiot. The best advice any of us can give you is to agree to everything she wants if you can afford it, and stay as far away from them as you can. She wanted a church wedding. We found one close by, but part of the deal was that we had to attend services for at least 6 weeks before the wedding. It turned out to be a very good thing. The Reverend was a pretty smart old guy, and he insisted on a few counseling sessions first. The disaster of my first marriage came out, along with all the stuff that happened to her. She cried for me, looked me in the eye, and said she would never do that to me. I believed her. We ended up being members, not going every week, but pretty often. I accused her of using it as an excuse to buy more dresses. She hardly ever wore anything else except when she worked. She wanted to keep her job, so she'd have money of her own. The first time you say, I don't look good in dresses, I'll stop wearing them, she says, smirking. Now she has so many that she rotates them, putting the off-season ones in the other bedroom. I can still shut my eyes and see Amanda walking down the aisle. The ivory lace and silk dress hugged her like a second skin, highlighting her shape. Her thick mane of hair fell down her back, shining in the light. Helen stood in as the mother of the bride. Sam gave her away, and Fat Boy was my best man. Everyone from my job was there except Gail, and almost everyone from the bar attended. They escorted our limo to the airport on their bikes. Mom was there. She fell hard for Amanda. She had always wanted a daughter. Amanda warmed up more slowly, but when we left, she leaned in and said something that brought fresh tears to her eyes. I asked about it on the way to the airport. Thank you, Mom, for sharing your son. I'll return the favor with your grandchildren. It seemed to make her happy. Then she distracted me by showing me hints of her wedding lingerie. We honeymooned in Nice because I had been to Cancun on my first honeymoon, and I did not want overlapping memories. I found out it was the first trip out of the country Amanda had ever been on. It was actually the first trip anywhere for her. We had a ball. We hit the beaches, and she stayed under the umbrella a lot, her fair skin not caring much for the hot sun. I loved watching her red hair shine as she walked. She shocked the heck out of me by dragging me to a topless beach. Amanda took off her cover-up, clad only in a tiny thong. "Shut your mouth, honey," she said. "I wanted to give you something to remember. Me walking around almost naked while men drooled over me, knowing that no one but you will ever touch me. Should that do it?" I'll admit it, I had to jump in the water about every 5 minutes to try to get my excitement to calm down. The water was so warm it didn't help. Her body was small but proportional, making her look incredibly beautiful. Her figure made men stop talking as she walked by. I saw one wife jab her husband in the ribs over it. We tried to exhaust ourselves with love-making that night. It didn't work, but we almost went into comas. 6 glorious months went by. I made her quit the bar so she'd be home with me. She grumbled but did it. She was walking around with that secret smile I recognized. She was up to something. To fill her time, she went back to school, pursuing a degree in hospitality and food management. I supported her fully but didn't understand her choice. She called me at work, sounding panicked. "Honey, I need you to come home now. It's important." I left immediately. She was pacing back and forth, obviously agitated. She rushed into my arms, and I started to get a bad feeling. I knew it was bad when she started with, "Honey, do you love me?" "Do I even have to answer that?" I asked. She relaxed and took my hand. "I've got something to tell you and something to ask you. Hear me out, please, before you say anything." She had been looking for her sister for a few weeks, wanting to reconnect. Her sister was 12 now, and Amanda hadn't seen her since she was 4. It weighed on her, thinking about how good her life was now and remembering her experience with foster care. "I found my sister. She doesn't even remember me," Amanda said, her voice breaking. "That was pretty hard. She looks a lot like Dad." "That's great, honey. I'm sure she'll warm up after she gets to know you." "Is she in a good home?" "Adopted?" I asked. "No," she said sadly. "She wasn't adopted, and she was in a bad place when I found her. A place so bad they had to remove her and the others from the home." "Where is she now? You haven't lost her again, have you?" She hugged me. "No, she's really close. She's in a spare bedroom." After I collected my thoughts, I had Amanda bring her out. She was only 12 but already taller than Amanda. Her hair was black, her nose a little broader, but other than that, they had identical features. Same mouth, same elegant neck, same expressive hands. Amanda introduced us. I went to hug her, but she backed up, so I held out my hand. "It's nice to finally meet you, Celeste. Amanda talks about you often. Where the heck has she been while I was living in that hole? Why hasn't she come looking for me before now? I could have been here years ago." The sheer anger in her voice shook me. Amanda stepped in. "I'm here now, honey. I came for you as soon as I was able to. 4 years ago, I couldn't take care of myself. There was no way I could give an 8-year-old what she needed. I had to grow up first. I'm sorry if you're angry. Let's see if we can make it up to you." Celeste was on a roll. "Oh, that's just great. Now I get to live with the Cleavers, wear frilly dresses, and giggle over boys. Newsflash, I know all about boys. Why do you think they closed the home down? Guys want one thing, and it's right here." She grabbed her lower abdomen. "Just as soon as you're out the door, hubby here will try to make me his little servant. Let's get this over with. Give me some cash and turn me loose, and I'm yours for the night. Deal?" Amanda was shocked into silence. I was furious. "Maybe we'll just give you a warm bed for the night and send you on your way tomorrow. If what you had is better than what we're offering, go for it. Come to think of it, I haven't offered you a thing. I'll tell you this, if we talk it over and decide we want you with us, you'll keep a civil tongue in your head and not give us any trouble. The most important thing in my life is my wife, and I will not have her hurt or suffer because you had a hard life. Hers hasn't been sweetness and light either. Listen to her story sometime and see if you have any empathy. Are we clear here? She had backed away from me, but as soon as I stopped, she got her bravado back. I don't need a father figure. I don't need a sister or a mother. I don't need a darn thing from either of you. Clear enough. I turned to Amanda and hugged her. She started crying. I stroked her hair. I'm sorry, honey. I know how much you wanted this. It seems you may be too late. It's not your fault, you hear me? It is not your fault. Maybe she'll eventually grow up and realize that. I stepped back and looked at both of them. I'm going to start the grill. You two talk and see if you can come to terms. Celeste, you're here for at least the night. I expect you to be civil and stop cursing. They talked while I set up the grill and cooked. I left the curtain open just in case I could hear the yelling. I saw Amanda cry, and it broke my heart. Then Amanda said something that caused Celeste to cry, and they started hugging. Maybe there was hope after all. There wasn't much conversation over dinner, but there were no outbursts either. Celeste ate 2 steaks and 2 huge baked potatoes. She even helped Amanda wash the dishes. They came into the living room to tell me they were going out for about an hour to pick up clothes for Celeste, I guessed. I sat and thought while they were gone, wondering about a society that treated children like unwanted baggage. When they returned, Celeste was actually giggling. She even said goodnight to us after modeling her new pajamas, complete with feet. We talked in bed after she was asleep. Can we keep her, at least for a while? I'll be responsible for her, you won't even notice her, Amanda said. I gave a dry chuckle. I doubt that. All right, she can stay temporarily, but she has to behave. Thank you, honey. I knew I could count on you, Amanda replied. The state was happy to give Amanda custody. She was in a stable marriage, lived in a good neighborhood, and had references from Sam, Helen, and half the bar. Plus, they wouldn't have to pay anything. It threw them for a loop when I asked where Celeste's Social Security money was. No one had filed for it. I got a lawyer, and he did the paperwork. When it was settled, they had to give all the money she was due for the last 8 years to us. Actually, as guardians, she also got $700 a month until she was 18. We put it into a college fund she could access at 18 if she went to school. If she didn't, she'd get the full amount when she was 21. It would almost be enough to pay for 4 years if she was careful. Celeste wasn't as grateful as we had hoped, complaining that she should get it sooner to buy a car. That's almost 4 years away. Let's see what happens between now and then, I said. I ended up being the bad guy to make it easier on Amanda. Celeste resented it tremendously, but knew better than to try to play us off each other. The first time, she got grounded for a month. She was behind at school, mostly from not paying attention. She refused help from me at first, but Amanda kind of forced her, giving her rewards for good grades, so she started listening. During this time, I was doing really well at my job. The campaign for the winemaker was a roaring success and led to bigger things. My boss was scared to death I was going to leave. He knew I'd had offers, so he struck a deal with me. I could buy into the company, and he'd match every percent I bought up to 7. At the current valuation, I would be able to afford about 1% a year, so in 7 years, I'd have 14% of the company. Amanda and I talked it over and decided to do it. I liked it here, and so did Amanda. Celeste ran away twice. The first time, she was gone for days before they found her at a bus station. She stayed away, and Amanda cried the whole time she was gone. When she came back, she was defiant and angry. I waited until I could talk to her alone, and laid it out. You know, you could be a good kid if you'd let yourself. You're pretty smart. It looks like you could figure out what kind of life you'd have on the streets. A troubled, disease-riddled person, most likely old before your time and dead before 30. Is that what you want? Here it is plain and simple. You run again, and you won't come back. In 3 more years, you'll be 16. I'll pay your court costs for emancipation, give you your Social Security money, and wish you a nice life. But my wife has just about shed her last hair over you. Do you understand? I think I scared her. 6 months later, she didn't come home from school. When she showed up, she found the doors locked. Thank goodness Amanda wasn't there. I opened the door and talked through the screen. I've already called the DCF worker. You can come in and wait for them. They should be here in about 45 minutes. I opened the door and let her in. She huddled on the couch, rocking back and forth. Soon she was crying, then begging, "Please, please, please don't send me away. I'll be good, I promise." I didn't mean to leave. I panicked when I got busted for smoking at school. They suspended me for 3 days. It'll kill Amanda. I didn't know what to do. I was surprised she hated smokers. Were you smoking? No, but I was with them, cutting class. Please don't send me away. Celeste, look at me, I said. She raised her head. You have to learn. You have a support system. Amanda loves you. I love you. We're a family. We're here to provide guidance, a good home, and love. Let us do our job, all right? You should have come to us and told us what you did. We would have punished you, been disappointed, but we wouldn't have stopped loving you. The tears started in earnest when I told her I loved her, and she flew into my arms, sobbing her heart out. Amanda walked in. What's going on? She asked nervously. Our child is growing up, honey, I said. She did something bad, got caught, came home, and told me all about it. I truly believe she understands what she did and is sorry. I'll let her tell you about it. Here I handed her off and went outside, catching the DCF worker at the mailbox. Hi, Denise. Sorry, it was a false alarm. She got caught doing something she shouldn't have and got suspended for 3 days. Nothing really serious, but she was afraid to face us. Amanda is with her now, getting to the bottom of what happened. They're inside if you want to check on them. She sighed. I ought to, but I think I can trust you now. I can get home and cook Fred's dinner and eat as a family for once. Thanks, Denise, I said, feeling bad for taking time away from her family. Why don't you guys come over on Sunday? I've got a couple of Boston butts I've been thinking about roasting. That sounds good, Jace, but it's homecoming in our church. There's going to be a big meal. Why don't you guys come there instead? There's an informal competition among a few of us to see how many guests we can get to come. You guys might put me ahead. I told her I'd run it by the girls and went inside. Who was that? Amanda asked. It was Denise, honey. She saw me outside and stopped to invite us to homecoming. Do you guys want to go? I wouldn't mind it. They got that new young reverend, H.E.K. He's kind of cute. I'll give her a call and see what she wants me to bring. Celeste watched me, grinning. I tried to look stern but failed. She hopped off the couch. I know I'm grounded for a month, but I can go to church, right? Buddy Smith goes to that church, doesn't he? Celeste, you're 13. You've got time for that later, much later. Between you two, lightning will strike the church, I said, and they both grinned at me. Celeste said, "Men," and then went to help her sister with dinner. That was the exact moment when I knew my little family was going to be okay. This had been a really big week for us. Celeste had made the honor roll for the first time and was due to start learning to drive over the summer. The thought of someone that young driving scared me pretty badly. Amanda graduated tonight, holding her diploma like it was a life preserver in a stormy sea. She even got to make a little speech that brought the house to tears. She talked about her childhood, her sisters, and the fact that she had come so far because she had someone who believed in her and wouldn't let her stop. She thanked me for being the best husband ever and Celeste for being a perfect daughter. Have faith, have hope, believe in yourself. You may not get as lucky as I did, but you'll be a better person for trying. We held a cookout for her the next day, and her little house was filled to capacity. Mom came down to celebrate her accomplishment, along with our bar friends, most of my work friends, including my boss, Denise from DSS, and surprisingly, Jack Edwards and his wife. I thought they were still in Italy. After everyone else had left, they lingered, waiting to take Celeste for the weekend. They had married late and never had children. June fell in love with Amanda, treating her like the daughter she never had. When Celeste came along, she was over the moon. She kept Celeste for a week once a month so Amanda and I could have a little personal time. She always brought Celeste back with at least one new outfit. Mom got in on it too. Between them, Celeste was almost never home during the summer. I complained and was jumped by the pack almost immediately. Your girls have had a hard life, Jace. The best thing that ever happened to them was you. I've always wanted a daughter and a grandchild. Thank you for these. So stop complaining because your daughter is growing up and bonding with her grandparents. We're supposed to spoil her. I have a suggestion to take the heat off Celeste. Give us a couple more grandchildren. It'll make sharing easier. Mom sat back after that speech, smirking a little. We heard a sob and looked at Celeste. Soon, the women were huddled over Celeste, petting her and whispering soothing words. When they settled down, I started to ask, but Amanda shushed me. June jumped right in. Listen to your mother, Jace. You too, Amanda. We're not getting any younger here. Give them to us soon while we're still fit enough to chase them around. I looked at Jack, and he just grinned. I think it's an excellent idea. Celeste hugged me for a long time before she left, clinging to me. We didn't go down to the bar as frequently as we used to. Children limit your options. I still went after work occasionally. Celeste usually had something going on that required transportation, so Amanda became Uber mom, taking her to band practice, soccer practice, games, etc. I usually wasn't available for any of that, but made sure I went to all her games. One sunny Saturday afternoon, at the end of a soccer game, I sat and listened to her and her teammates chatter, trying to decide where to go to celebrate their win. She was going out with groups now, something I was a little uncomfortable with, because they tended to pair up at these things. Amanda laughed. Even if you'd like to, Han, you can't stop her from growing up. This is good practice for when the time comes for one-on-one dating, and they're almost all chaperoned. The only exception is when they go to the movies and hang out at the mall. Trust her. She would die before she'd disappoint her daddy. It was right after Amanda graduated, and we were at a church function. The kids wanted to go for ice cream later, and I walked up to Celeste. Here's your daddy now. Ask him if it's all right. She looked at me and batted her eyes. Daddy, can I go with Mrs. Jenkins and my friends for ice cream? It caught me off guard, and tears started forming. Sure, baby. Here's the $20. She giggled, took the money, and scampered off, yelling out behind her, Bye, Mom. Bye, Dad. I'll be home by 7. Amanda had to drive us home after that. We're Mom and Dad, she said. It's just easier than having to explain every time someone says something about it. And I have to explain. Besides, you treat me like your kid anyway. Plus, I like it. I liked it too. Our friend Sam had a stroke, not a really bad one, but serious enough that he had to cut back on work. All their friends pitched in. But it soon became apparent that Helen couldn't keep up. Amanda came to me one Sunday afternoon after church. We were going for a ride. Before we go, I need to ask you for something. Let me get it all out before you say anything. It's important to me. I hoped it wasn't bad. I love being mom to Celeste. I love being your wife. But Helen needs help, and I want to use my degree. I've talked it over with Helen and Sam, and they're all for it. I want to go back to work at the bar, not as an employee, but as a partner. Helen will run the bar with Sam's help, and I'll run the kitchen. Will you think about it? I did while we rode. We stopped at the bar, and I looked at it with new eyes. It was in good shape but could use a little sprucing up. Helen came by, and Amanda excused herself, going into the kitchen. What do you think? She asked. I think it's a lot to consider. I don't want to lose my wife to a business. You know my past, and I'm a little sensitive about my wife being on a different schedule. Plus, we have to consider Celeste. I'll need to know how much money we're talking about. In the end, I'll probably say yes. She knows I can't refuse her. Helen patted my hand. You won't lose her, honey. She's already got it planned, so she won't be away from you that much. Once the startup is complete and everyone is trained, she has big plans. She's even got me and Sam excited. So we talked it over. I had long since turned our finances over to her. She was really good at stretching dollars. Oh, I had a general idea, but she usually paid the bills. Our vehicles were all paid for, even the 3-year-old minivan she had to transport Celeste and all her friends. We had bought our house when the lease was up. It was small but suited our needs. We'd made a pretty hefty down payment, so our mortgage was low. By now, I owned 4% of my company and was making really good money for our size. Our savings account was in good shape, so I had no argument about where the money was coming from. In the end, we owned 30% of the bar. We spent a little money sprucing it up, upgraded the kitchen, and had a grand reopening. Business picked up almost immediately. All the old patrons were happy with the new look of their hangout, and the new customers liked the atmosphere. The place was opening at 11 now to serve a lunch crowd. Amanda worked wonders with the kitchen. Gone were the plain burgers and fries. They still offered them, dressed up a little. There were new toppings to select from, such as avocado slices, hot peppers, spinach leaves, and different flavors of cheese slices. Anything else she could think of to put on a burger was available. The same went for the hot dogs. A favorite was covered with grilled onions and mushrooms, hot mustard, and dill relish. Fries were no longer offered. Instead, you got home fries, sliced almost as thin as chips, hand-cut, and soaked overnight in various flavors. She also added soups, all homemade. Potato with cheese and bacon bits, tomato with half and half blended in, and a pork-based stew with a lot of herbs were the most popular. One of her upgrades was a large gas grill, so you could have grilled veggies and seasoned them. She insisted on buying from local farmers as much as possible, and had a large chalkboard at the kitchen door showing which farm provided the vegetables or meats for the day. The farmers loved it. The regulars were a little leery at first, but soon you could hear discussions and sometimes arguments over which farm provided the best produce and which fresh herbs and spices complemented which dishes best. It was a riot to see two big bikers almost come to blows over which soup was better, pumpkin or butternut squash. She also added a wine list, all locals, with Jack's getting top billing. It was funny. In our state, you couldn't serve wine in a place with pool tables, so they had to go. Helen and Sam really didn't mind, because that was usually where the fights started, and they could add 8 more tables in the space. Helen took the lead and worked out a deal with a local brewer to feature their beers on draft. A local food critic, hearing good things, paid us a visit. We didn't even know it until the review came out. The best hidden jewel in the state was the caption, followed by an outstanding review. Sam's Bar and Grill, located on Swan Pond Road, just outside of the city limits, has been around for 75 years, a local favorite. The addition of minority owner Amanda Gooding and her recent upgrade of the kitchen has pushed it out of the shadows and into the limelight. I'm sure the regulars would have preferred it stayed local, but word has spread, and there's no going back. Blue collar, white collar, bikers, farmers, college kids, you'll find them all rubbing elbows in an amiable mix. The only time I heard raised voices was when 2 patrons disagreed over which herb should be dominant in the pork stew, rosemary or basil. I sided with the biker because, well, he was bigger, and I've always liked rosemary. The menu features simple fare, well-seasoned and prepared at a reasonable price. The service is excellent, the atmosphere is relaxed, and it almost sparkles. It's so clean. The sanitation rating is 102, just 1 point short of perfection. I complimented Mrs. Gooding, and she promised they would get the top rating in 6 months if she had to work her whole staff to death. Being outside the city limits, all that offers is beer and wine, not liquor. Helen Connors, the manager and principal owner along with her husband Sam, says they have no intention of getting a liquor license should the limits expand to include them. It's just so much easier without liquor, she said. The bar portion looks like an old-time saloon, featuring local brews and wines, as well as a full complement of national brands. The staff is well-schooled and can explain the difference between a Pilsner, a Lager, or a Bock, a dry white, and a sweet red with ease. It's a little out of the way, but worth the trip. I've been there 3 times, gotten 3 different meals, and have been satisfied every time with the quality, the quantity, and the service. One more thing, I demand you try the banana pudding. It's a weakness of mine, and it's the best I've ever tasted. And I've tasted a lot over the years. Helen and Amanda just looked at each other and grinned. I didn't know who he was, said Amanda. I just thought he was a nosy customer with a little knowledge. Celeste and I ate dinner there most nights Amanda worked, and she always scheduled her break so she could dine with us. Celeste wanted to start working there when she got old enough for a child work permit, and I had no problem with it. There were a lot of families there now. Most of the serious drinking was done in the bar. Thursday night was bike night, and the local Harley owners group showed up in force, along with guys riding all different kinds. They wanted to hold their meetings there, but we didn't have a private room. Amanda, Sam, and Helen talked about it, got an architect, and almost tripled the size of the place. Soon, even that space was filled. I was up to 8% ownership by now. In our agency, Celeste turned 16, went to work after school, and on weekdays part-time, learning how to cook alongside her sister or mom. Her goal was to attend the local culinary school when she graduated from high school. She wanted the car, but there was no way I was going to give a 16-year-old something that would go that fast. We got her a Mustang instead, not one of those turbo monsters, but one with a nice little V6. It still went pretty fast, though. Amanda was almost 26, and I was ready to start our little family. She agreed but wanted to wait until Celeste had graduated so she could concentrate on the baby. Celeste laughed when she walked in on our conversation. "Mom, do I look like a baby? I can take care of myself. You should think about Dad giving me a little sister or brother while he's still young enough to help take care of them." I thought her argument had a lot of merit, but Amanda just laughed and said we'd talk about it later. Our business was expanding as well. My ad campaign for Jack had led to a lot more business, especially among the local alcohol industries. We now handled 2 more wineries and 3 brewers, and were talking to a local distillery that was just starting to get some national attention. I was at a regional conference when I ran into an old friend I hadn't seen in almost 6 years. Still an ebony goddess, maturity had added to her beauty. I saw her first and slipped up behind her. "I got tired of waiting for you, but there's a lot of guys here right now practically drooling over you." Of course, I had gathered her up in a big hug while I talked. Shocked at first, she returned the hug when she realized who I was. "Jace, man, it's good to see you. How are you? Where have you been? You just disappeared off the face of the earth. I've missed you." There were times when I needed good advice and a sounding board. We got a table and talked for an hour. She was divorced. Her husband had cheated on her, and she caught him. Apparently, he wasn't as rigid over boundaries as I was, a skinny little woman with the figure of a 12-year-old girl. She caught him, and he promised it was over. They went to counseling, and she was just about sure they were over it when she rolled up pregnant. She never saw him again after that. He didn't even show up at the final decree. I took her hand. "Sorry, Ida. I know how it feels. Is anyone in your life right now?" "No, it's too early, I guess. I've been thinking about making a change. My agency was sold, and I don't like the new owners. I think the only reason they keep me is that I'm so good at what I do. I really need a change." I grinned at her, fishing out a card. "Ever think about relocating to the sunny South? Think about it, and give me a call." To my surprise, she took the card. Just before we left, she asked me about my life. I held up my hand so she could see the wedding band. I literally thank God every day for the life I have now. I've got a great woman, a good daughter, an excellent job, and a large group of really nice friends here. I fished out pictures of Amanda and Celeste. She looked at them in wonder. How in the world did you end up with a woman this beautiful? And the daughter looks just like her, except for the hair color. She looks so young. Did she have a daughter when she was 6? I laughed and explained. She hugged me hard, genuinely happy for me. I didn't think about it until later, but neither of us mentioned Becky, not once. My boss called me into his office 2 months later, tossing a resume at me. Look this over. She gave you as a reference, and even said you trained her. Is she any good? I looked at it and grinned. I might have trained her, but she's a natural. By now, she's better than I am. If we can afford her, we'd be idiots not to hire her. He grunted. Hire her then. Have her report to you. Now I've got something serious we need to talk about. I haven't told a soul yet, and it doesn't need to leave this room. I'm sick, Jace. It's pretty serious. I've got a tumor on my brain. They just found it, and it has to be removed, or it'll kill me. There's a 50-50 chance I won't make it. I talked to Gloria, and she agrees with me that you should run the place until I'm better, if I make it. If I don't, we still need you to take control and keep the place viable until Gloria can decide what she wants to do. It shook up our little circle of friends pretty badly when he announced it. He and Jack were really close, had been for years. The day of the surgery, our whole office, even Gail, was there. Many of his friends were there as well. He called every one of us into his room to say goodbye, just in case. Ken, June, Amanda, Celeste, and I took turns holding Gloria. When we weren't holding her, we were in the chapel with the rest of his friends, praying for him. He was under for 5 hours. When the doctor came out, everyone held their breath. He's doing fine so far. I feel pretty good about his chances of recovery. It'll be tomorrow before he's strong enough to allow visitors. We shouted, we cried, we thanked the doctors and God. I fit right into the point where she became my right-hand woman. Amanda and Celeste loved her, and she was soon a part of our group of friends. Pretty soon, the matchmaking started. Married women have this thing about a single woman being in their circle. She fought them, saying she wasn't ready yet. She spent a lot of time in the bar, and soon everyone knew she was our friend, and that made her their friend. I'll never forget the day another friend invited her to ride with him on a poker run. He was huge, bearded, and white, and perhaps the gentlest man I'd ever met. Put him in a social situation where there were kids, and in half an hour, they were clustered around him like he was the Pied Piper. His wife turned out to be a cold, conniving woman having multiple affairs before he found out. It destroyed him, and she called in the biggest favor she'd ever met. Her new boyfriend thought he could get away with disrespecting him. A huge mistake. Sam and I bailed him out, got him a lawyer, and made it go away. But the damage was done. It had been 18 months, and he still hadn't even thought about dating. I was surprised by Ida accepting if they went on a date first to get to know each other. It must have been a heck of a date, because they smiled like crazy on the poker run. 8 months later, she was sporting a really nice ring and was 3 months pregnant. My life took another dramatic change when I was contacted by a woman, Alice Johnson, to see if we were interested in doing a campaign for her. She even had it planned out, which gave me pause. Clients rarely have good ideas, and some are so married to them, they insist we do it their way. I usually steer them towards someone else because when they tank, they never understand why. She was a personal manager specializing in fighters. Her new sister-in-law was Bettina Bang Bang Burke, now Stewart, a middleweight MMA fighter and world champion in her class. The campaign wasn't for her, but for a charity they both supported. I was hesitant, but agreed to meet. Ida and I met her at the airport, had lunch, and she told us what she wanted. I had to admit it was very clever. We tweaked it just a bit, did a few focus groups, and decided to go with it. Soon, ads appeared, mostly in print and on billboards. It was a variation on the Got Milk campaign, only instead of milk, they changed it to Got Love. Love was the official catchphrase of the National Adoption Coalition, a loose group of agencies designed to get children into loving homes. It developed a huge national presence. The ads featured famous people, all adopted as children, with a group of children from various homes, usually in their home city. There was a plea to consider adopting one of the children, and local dairies were tied in, promising a certain amount of gallons donated to the homes for every successful adoption. We even worked in the milk mustache. Soon, we had spokespeople begging us to let them help. Rock and country stars, professional athletes, business giants, actors, Olympians, Nobel Prize winners, all adopted and all literally begging to help. We featured many of them with their adoptive parents. Some had even adopted themselves. Betty and Mark Stewart, who helped originate the idea, posed with their newly adopted son. It was an instant favorite and led to my company, High Country Advertising, winning a national award. Howard, my boss, was still too weak to travel, so he sent Ida and me to accept it. Of course, her new husband Roy and Amanda went along. It was very gratifying to be there. We made our acceptance speech and apologized to Alice Johnson, who we insisted attend and share the stage with us, for stealing her idea. Then we thanked her and the people present for honoring us. There was a mixer after the awards. Ida and I had a bet going. The one who got the most offers had to buy the loser breakfast. I had 9, Ida had 16. I told her I had a bet going. The one who got the most offers had to buy the loser breakfast. I had 9, Ida had 16. I told her I wanted steak and eggs. We were just about to leave when I was looking around for Amanda. She and Ida had gone to the ladies' room when I ran into her. Becky. She had a hesitant, half-fearful look on her face. "Hello, Jace. How are you?" I looked her over. She was still beautiful, a little heavier, but not much. Her hair was much shorter, her lips seemed fuller, but otherwise, she was still the beauty I fell in love with. "I'm good, Beck, and you?" She waved a hand dismissively. "Oh, I'm all right. Congratulations on your award. It was good to see Ida again. She says she works for you now." I answered the implied question. I prefer to say she works with me. I'm a minority owner and current manager of High Country Advertising. Been there since after I like it. I like the area and the people. She looked down at my finger. "Seems there is one there. You really like it." I don't know if it hurt her feelings, but I smiled, rubbing my band. "Yes, there is. I see you found someone too." She had what could only be described as a rock on her finger. She twisted it, a nervous gesture. "I have, and I'm content. But Jace, late at night when you're lying there next to her, do you ever think about me? If you'd just forgiven me, we'd still be together." I sighed. "I used to think about you a lot, but then I met Amanda, and you became a distant memory." "Oh, I haven't forgotten you. Every once in a while, something will trigger a memory of happier times, but it's fleeting." She suddenly grabbed my hand. "We could start over. I'd leave him in a minute if you'd take me back. I've never gotten over you. We were meant to be together." I heard a sharp intake of breath behind me as I gently removed her hand. "No, we weren't, Beck. If we were, you would have never cheated, and I would never have found Amanda. There's more love and faithfulness in the tip of her little finger than in your whole body. I'm sorry, Becky. Please try to have a good life." I started to walk off when I felt a small hand slip into mine. "Who's your friend, honey?" asked Amanda with a bland smile on her face. "This is Becky, someone I used to know in my old town. Becky, I'd like to present my wife, Amanda." They didn't offer to shake hands. They just stared at each other and waged a mental standoff. I looked at them together, Becky in her mid-30s in a simple black dress, and Amanda, at 26, still carrying the bloom of youth, her green floor-length gown matching her eyes, and her copper-red hair cascading down her back. I was once again amazed at how lucky I actually was. Amanda broke contact and turned to me, smiling. "Honey, I know it's early, but would you take me back to the room? I seem to be having an evening bout of morning sickness." She stopped, put her hand to her mouth, and giggled. "Oops, I was going to surprise you tonight. Too late now." "Congratulations, honey. It's a boy." I think I heard a gasp behind me. But suddenly, the only thing in the world worth my attention was right in front of me. I gathered her in my arms, kissing and crying while she giggled. She finally had to be on my back to make me let go. There was a massive celebration at the bar. Amanda smiled and thanked everyone. "I just wanted to make sure I had your full attention. I know who you were talking to in New York. If I ever see you in the same room with that woman again, I'll wear your teeth for earrings. Do you understand?" She was starting to squeeze me. I made her a solemn vow it would never ever happen again. She let go and purred in my ear. "Thank you, honey," and I heard what you told her. It was so sweet. Besides, you're going to need that promise. I still want that girl. Thanks to everyone who took the time to listen to today's stories. If you enjoyed it, please consider liking and subscribing if you haven't already. Feel free to share your thoughts on the events in the comments below. Take care.